Hello everyone, this is Jay from Python in Office. Welcome to the tutorial on how to use Python Xlsxwriter library to create a fully functional Excel file that contains formulas, formats, charts, and many more. In this channel, we explore ways to use Python to make our office jobs and lives easier. If that's something interests you, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any future video updates. This is the last part of the series on using Xlsxwriter library to create Excel file. You can check out the previous two videos if you need an introduction to the Xlsxwriter library. As you all know, Excel has many rich built-in features for making spreadsheets very pretty. For example, you can format cells, add charts, etc. And we'll be creating those features using the Xlsxwriter library. Formatting spreadsheet involves two steps. First, we need to create a format object in Python. Then we need to write that format into a cell. Let's jump right into the code. This is the code we wrote in the last part, where we produced cash flow projections for a few items. We'll be reusing this code to add formats and charts. So I'm going to start from this part where before we wrote anything to the cell. We can create a format object by calling the workbook add format method. By doing so, we create an empty format object. Then we have to add the formats or styles into the empty format object. There are two ways to add the formats. The first is my preferred way. We can pass a dictionary into the format constructor, which is this. And the dictionary basically contains format properties like whether we want the text to be bold, text font, size, or even color. So let's do that right here. A dictionary, and then I want the text to be bold. I also want the font color to be green, and I want my text to use the Chicago font. The second way is by calling the methods of the format object. For instance, if we want to achieve the same results as the constructor approach that we did previously, here's what we have to do. I'll leave it to you to decide which approach is better for you. So now we created this fancy format, but it's not in Excel sheet yet. We have to write it into the cell by calling the worksheet.write function. Remember that the write function takes a few arguments. For example, the first argument is the cell address. We can use either row, column, or the A1 notation. And the second argument is the data we want to write into the cell. And then we can add another argument for the format. I'm going to populate some format in the script so that we can use them later on. Let's write a title for the calculation sheet. So again, this is a completed file that we're going to use for reference only. And we are going to write this cell right here. It's a title cell called Walls Accumulation. You can see that this is the Chicago font, size 20. Obviously it's bold and text color in green. And there's also a nice double line border around the cell. So this is the format definition for this cell. And you might also notice that this is a merged cell. So from B1 to R1, these cells are merged together. And we're going to write this into the sheet from Python. Remember, this is our second worksheet that we call calculation. Well, here it's called with formula, but in our example, we use the name calculation. So anyways, this will be the second worksheet, so WS2. So we can use the worksheet.mergeRange method to merge cells. And the first argument we need to pass in is obviously the cell address. So in our case, it's going to be B1 to R1. And you can also use the row and column notation. It's just going to be 4 integers, so the 4 coordinates, which I'll show in just a second. And the second argument here will be the text that we want to type in. And the last argument is the format. So if we write this and we do a workbook.close and run the script, it's gonna write exactly like this. I'm not going to run this because there are a lot of stuff to cover. It will take a lot of time if we show every step. I'll run the script at the end so that you can see the final results. If you want to use the row and column notation, all you have to do is so B1, R1. The row is always in the first row, so it's going to be the index is 0. R has an index of 17, so 17, and then the same argument as before. Both ways are equivalent. Let's talk about the borderlines. Although it's possible to create borderlines with Xlsxwriter, it will be very tedious unless we just want to draw a very simple grid. If you want to format something in Excel, we just have to write some data and select the data. If we want a very fancy borderline, we can do something like this. So we have a very nice looking table here without a grid. But in order to create a table like this, it's not as easy as selecting cells and then just do some formats. You probably already noticed that if we want to add or change any format to a cell, we need to rewrite all the contents in the cell, including the data itself, because the write function will input data and format simultaneously. It's easy to write a simple grid, and we just need to set the border property to a desired style. For example, number 6. I'll show you the choices later, so don't worry. But if we want to draw a table with many different line styles, for example, like this one here, we got thick lines, thin lines, and dash lines. It'll be very tedious because we have to create different format objects for each scenario. So, for example, for this cell here on the corner, we have to draw top and left side thick, bottom and right side thin. For this cell here, we have to draw these 3 sides dash lines and the left side a solid thin line. Plus that you must have to have several if conditions to check whether a cell is on the top or on the sides or in the middle, because depending on the position of the cell, you have to pass in different formats in order to draw a table like this. My recommendation is just don't bother with drawing fancy borderlines with Xlsxwriter. It's like spending 80% of the time to achieve a 2% gain. It's not worth it. Alright, let's go back to the general format topic. So Excel offers a lot of format, as we all know. We can find all the available formats on Xlsxwriter documentation site, which is here. So this column here, this is the property or the dictionary style if you want to use the constructor to set the formats. And this column here, this is the method style where you just call the function, the set something function. As you know, Excel offers a rich variety of formats just for numbers. So how do we know how to set those formats? Just go into an Excel instance. Any tab is fine. Right click on any cell and go to format cell. Number on the list, go to the bottom custom. Here are all the number formats. We just need to copy these formats into Python. So let me show you what I got here side by side. Now I have this format for money. So basically add the $sign and then add a comma for every 3 zeros. And that is exactly what we have here. And then for the 1000 format, it's this one right here. So basically we show the nearest integer number. There's no decimal. If you want to show decimals, then you just want to put a dot and just add a couple more zeros at the end. You can also format a number as a percentage like this. So this format object here, we have the percentage format and we make the text color green and we make the background color black. So this format is essentially used to write these 3 cells right here. So we also got filters on this small table. If you want to add filters to your data, you can just call the worksheet.autofilter method and pass in the cell address. So in my case, I just passed from B10 to F10, which is the header row for this table. And that will create a filter for you. If you like sparklines, we can use the worksheet.addSparkline function. The first argument is, of course, again, the cell address. And the second argument is a dictionary containing the properties of the sparkline. Range is the data series. The type can be either line, column, or win-loss, which are the 3 different sparkline types. Let me show you here. So these are the 3 sparkline types that's available in Excel: line, column, win-loss. And the style here is the pattern you want to have for the sparkline. I think there are 36 predefined styles in sparkline, and if you refer to the Xlsxwriter documentation, you will find a list of styles, but this is not a complete list. So if you want to find out what each styles are, you can write a loop and then from 1 to 36, write all 36 styles to a sheet to find out. Now that we have all the formats we want to use, we need to write them into the cell along with the data. So let's modify our existing code to include the format argument in all those write functions. So up to this point, we talked about how to add formats, filters, and sparklines to our Excel spreadsheet. And next, let's move on to creating charts. The approach is similar to creating formats, where we first have to create an empty chart, and then we add elements to it afterwards. Although Excel offers a lot of different chart types, the Xlsxwriter library doesn't support all of them. you can find which chart types the Xlsxwriter supports. And for our demo, we'll draw a line chart and a column chart. One thing I like about the Xlsxwriter library is that it offers such a great flexibility when it comes to chart customization. We can change elements like color, data labels, legends, etc. So first we create an empty chart by calling the workbook.addChart function. And here we specify the chart type. So the first one we're going to use line. Then we're going to add all the elements into this empty line chart by using the chart.addSeries function. I'm going to move the screen a little bit and show Excel and the background side by side so that you can see what I'm talking about. So in the chart, if you go to select data, right, so this is the window that I want to compare to with Python. Category here in Excel, and which is also the horizontal, the x-axis. This will be the x-axis label. So the values argument is just the data series. For example, in Excel, we would select the series like this. And because this is income, so we would call it income. And this income corresponds to this name argument here. And this name will also show up in legend section if you want to show that. The line argument here, you can specify the color number, thickness, or if you want to use a dashed line instead of a solid line. And y2 axis is that basically we can create a secondary y-axis, so dual axis chart. Alright, so this is for the income line, and I'm also going to add another line for the accumulated wealth. And for that line, we're going to use the color green. And we also want to display the data labels that we want to show the value, and we want to place the values on top of that line. Also, you can format the numbers to show it basically as a money type. And this code here basically will draw this green line here for us. And the code previously will draw this very flat blue line down below. So now we have our line chart. Now this is not inside Excel yet. If you want to see this line chart inside Excel, we have to add it to the spreadsheet. So the way to add to the spreadsheet is we can call the insert chart function. And the first argument will again be the cell address. In our case, this is H3 and the chart name, which is the line chart. And once we save and close this workbook, you will see a line chart showing up at this location. But we're not going to save the spreadsheet yet because we also want to add a column chart. Again, just use the workbook add chart and specify the type as column. Now I want to show this with Excel side by side again because I want to show you how consistent the naming conventions are between Excel, the software, and Xlsxwriter library. If you go to Excel and go to chart, basically in Excel, column chart or bar chart, another name for them is histogram. This is vertical, this is horizontal. And in Excel, they call vertical histogram column chart, and they call horizontal histogram bar chart. And that's the same naming convention in the Xlsxwriter library. So if you're already familiar with Excel, then it's very intuitive to use the Xlsxwriter library because you find a lot of the names are the same. And actually, if you want to have one of those stacked chart, you can add another property here. I believe it's stacked. So if you add this subtype here, then you can get a stacked chart like these ones. We just want a normal column chart, so we'll be deleting this subtype stack. And then we'll be adding different data series and other elements to the column chart. Notice that here we've changed this argument from line to fill because now we're dealing with column chart and we want to fill those columns with colors. The first one is blue, yellow, and then green. The other property names are same as what we've used for the line chart, so I'm not going through them again. So this is how you would draw an individual chart. One of the coolest features of Xlsxwriter is that we can combine two charts together to form a new chart type. For example, there's a type of chart called Pareto chart. It's essentially created by combining a line chart and a column chart together. So to combine charts, simply just take one chart and then call the combine method. For example, let's take the column chart and call the combine method. We're gonna combine with the line chart that we created earlier. After combining these two charts, we're going to add more elements to the chart. So we set the chart name to be wealth accumulation, and we change the x-axis name to be number of years, a y-axis name to be income level, and we want to place the legend at the bottom of the chart. Also for the secondary axis, which is the y-axis at the right-hand side, we're going to name it to wealth level. And we can also set the chart width and height. Once we're happy with all these settings, then we can place the chart into the worksheet by using the worksheet.insert chart and the cell address, then the chart object. And now if we save and close this workbook, it's going to generate this whole book for us. Let's open it to see if it's as expected. Yeah, I think it looks pretty nice, isn't it? I found out that we cannot create pivot table using Xlsxwriter. What a bummer. I mean, given that pivot table is one of the most useful features inside Excel, why not have it? I might try to reach out to the developer team to see if it's possible to request the pivot table feature to add it. So now you have a fully functional Excel spreadsheet generated using Python. You have formulas, formats, charts, filters, sparklines, and whatnot. You don't have to stop here. The Xlsxwriter library can do a whole lot more, including data validation and conditional formatting, and so on. If you're serious with creating Excel spreadsheets using Python, I highly recommend you go check out the Xlsxwriter official documentation for a full list of capabilities. Alright, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.